Why can't I didn't even see it. This looks like, really from here, it looks almost like that one. That's a pattern on your nail. It's insane. Tell you what, if I bust my knee skiing, I'm gonna call it, you know. I'll try my all the way down. So they're in the med center. No, it's, I mean, if I continue to do it, it's inevitable at some point I do something.
I want to call to order the August 28th regular city council meeting. It is 6 p.m. Please rise for the pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, item 1.0, public comments and announcements. At this time, we'd like to listen to any member of the audience on any subject matter, whether or not that item is on the agenda. All comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for each speaker, shall be limited to city business or city-related business or matters of general public interest, and shall not include any personal attacks. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, members may not discuss or take action on any item that has not been posted on the agenda. When your name is called, please come to the podium and state your name and address clearly into the microphone before making your comments. Mike Robinson.
Hello. All right. Good evening, council members, mayor. How are you? I'm here for a few different reasons tonight. First, I'm going to give you just a quick update. I would also like to thank you all for agreeing to grant us the variance, which has enabled us to have our yard open and conduct business. You guys have managed to save several jobs for our employees. We're not currently earning what we need to stay afloat, but it's definitely a help, and you're making an impact in the lives of some of the people that depend on work at our establishment. Secondly, we recently hosted an event of Kids for Paper, and it was an extremely successful event. I think we raised a lot of money. Everybody had a good time, was safe. We did end up getting a noise violation. We did sound checks prior to the show. We took readings ourselves that are video documented, and the police officer visited us and said that he had a reading of 76 at a property line and issued us a ticket immediately. No warning, no nothing. I understand zero tolerance if that's the policy. Definitely seems like it was kind of targeted. Would have appreciated us to say, hey, you know, we're getting a reading over 65. As you guys all know, Texas state ordinance is 85 decibels. And not too long ago when the Death Star bill was passed, they enacted, you know, of what I believe to be a statewide ordinance of 85 decibels. We'll see how this plays out. But anyway, the real reason I'm here is we've got a bit of history. We've all had some issues with how things have been handled. We've come up and asked for you guys to work with us and begged and pleaded with you and given you descriptions of what we're going to do to try and improve our operation and be more compatible with the neighborhoods and the people in the community and how we're going to work with you. And every single one of you has ensured that you want to see us to be successful. And I'd like to think I can take you at your word when you say that to me, but several things have happened that lead me to believe that that really isn't the case with everyone. Just this last weekend, a member of council was at our establishment, Mr. Hefner, and they had to ask him to leave. This was and mind you, this was a city-sponsored event too. This was the Seabrook Fishing Derby that you guys give hot tax money to. So, Mr. Hefner, in our establishment, speaking disparagingly about ownership, about the establishment, management, and our practices to our customers at a bar with multiple people in earshot of it and in front of one of the partners' wives. I mean, guys, that's not how we try to make things work. And it definitely wasn't the appropriate time or place for that to happen, especially by somebody who's aspiring to be a mayoral candidate on the next election. So I feel, you can laugh all you want, sir, but it was your behavior that caused the manager to ask you to leave. And I really don't understand how that's acceptable from a city official in a place of business. We rely on our efforts there to support families and to try and run our business. I don't know if any of you guys own a business of your own, but it's not easy. There's challenges every single day, and we do our best to try and overcome them. We're not going to see eye to eye with each other on everything, but damn it, we just want to, be treated with some respect. We're not coming to your place and speaking disparagingly about you, and I think we deserve better. So I hope we can finally put all of the nastiness to bed. That's my wish. I'm here in good faith because we want to get along with everybody. And I hope you guys can extend the same courtesy. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Item 2.0, workshop session. 2.1, review and discuss the proposed fiscal year 2024-25.
We're here.
Oh, this isn't on here.
No, go back. I think you're at the past. Here, go off this and I'll fix it.
Okay, 1.1, mayor and city council or members of city staff may make announcements about city community events.
Well, good evening, folks. We got a lot of stuff coming up. National Night Out is tonight from 6 to 9, wherever your neighborhood happens to be. Coffee with a Cop is tomorrow in the community house from 9:30 to 11. Pat Green will be at Barge 295 on Friday, the 11th, from 5 to 10 p.m. Friday, October 11. And then the Celebration Seabrook is coming up October 12 from 11 to 7:30 in Mater Park, where it is every year. That's always a fun event. Harvest Moon Regatta on Thursday, the 17th. Saturday, the 17th to the 20th. It's a big boat race. It's kind of fun to watch. Bike Around the Bay is Sunday, October 20th from 8 to 2 p.m. National Drug Take Back Day. That's Saturday, October 26th from 10 to 2 at the Seabrook PD. For clarification, that is for prescription drugs. Costume Paw Parade, Saturday, October 26th from 10 to noon at Mater Park. And Joe Nichols will be at Bar 295 on Saturday, the 26th from 5 to 10 p.m. Is there anything I've missed?
Anybody else? Thanks, Rob. We have a proclamation declaring the month of October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Is the representative here? Hi, how are you? Whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month is intended to draw attention to the fact that domestic violence is widespread and has public health implications for every community member. Whereas domestic violence impacts our community is seen by statistics indicating that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced violence by an intimate partner. Whereas the impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, directly affecting women, men, and children, and a society as a whole. And whereas we must work together to educate our community about what can be done to prevent domestic violence and how to support survivors. And whereas staff, volunteers, of anti-violence programs in Seabrook encourage every person to speak out when witnessing acts of violence, however small. And whereas with leadership, dedication, and encouragement, there is compelling evidence that we can be successful in reducing domestic violence in Seabrook through prevention education, increased awareness, and holding perpetrators who commit acts of violence responsible for their actions. Now, therefore, in recognition of the important work done by domestic violence programs, I, Tom Kolupski, Mayor of Seabrook, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and urge all citizens to actively participate in the scheduled activities and programs sponsored by Bay Area Turning Point to work toward the elimination of domestic violence. I thank you. Thank you for your work, and thank you for coming. Thank you. Appreciate it. Say something? Sure. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Sybil Winters-Little. I am the Senior Operations Director. I started this work in 1996 when our shelter first opened. I had not envisioned that I still would be standing here today, still doing the same work, but I will tell you that your partnership is needed. It's appreciated. Last year, we serviced just on the hotline more than 10,000 victims, and most of those victims are right here in our backyard. We housed more than 500 clients in our actual shelter facility. So there's still work to be done, and without the partners and the community, we could not do the work that we do. So we do appreciate you standing with us and standing in the gap for victims.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate it. Okay. 3.0, the consent agenda. 3.1, approve the minutes of the September 17, 2024 and September 24th, 2024 city council meetings.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. 4.0, new business. 4.1, consider and take all appropriate action on the approval of a co-op Sourcewell contract number 081721-CXT with CXT in the amount of $192,347 for purchase, delivery, and installation of Denali 10-foot 3 by 17-foot 2-inch, two single-use, fully accessible flush restrooms as part of the American Rescue Act funds allocations and approve and authorize the city manager to execute at all associated documents. Brian?
So currently, there's a single stall restroom at the Brummerhot Park. This would be to remove that one and install this new 2-stall one for additional room and services.
Motion?
I did find out that the delivery time, the lead time is 150 days.
Move to approve 4.1.
Any more discussion? Any discussion at all? All in favor? Thank you. Consider and take all appropriate action on the aesthetics and landscaping for the Highway 146 expansion.
A couple weeks ago, we brought this up when EDC was here. And I've gone back and looked at all the paperwork. I've looked at a bunch of different dates. So on 5/1/2018, we authorized the funding for $1.4 million. And then this was for a green ribbon program. Green ribbon program. On 4/7/22, that's when we did that. Then on 7/7/22, we approved Clark Condon as the person who was going to be the architect for the green ribbon program. So the reason I keep bringing up green ribbon program, I didn't bring up rocks. And that's what we got, a bunch of rocks. So my next question is going to be to the chief. Do you have enough people to guard those rocks 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because they're worth $1.4 million. We can't let them walk away. That's worth as much as gold. So I think we need to have them protected. I'm being facetious, of course. So my point is, I brought this up and I was told, oh, on 5/1/2018, we approved this. We didn't approve rocks. we approved plants, trees, so I want that pulled up. So go ahead and pull up the, that document. You sent it to me earlier. But there's a document that can be pulled up because it has the Seabrook logo painted blue. It has the sails painted blue. It has trees, bushes, plants, grasses, flowers, everything. That's what we agreed on. Now, the next one is when Clark Condon was approved, it also said the people of Seabrook will have their input, not just be told what they're going to do. The Seabrook citizens would have their input. OST would have their input. So I would like to know when the meeting was with the people and then when the meeting was with OST, with Clark Condon. So that's my question right now, because I got a lot more to go over, but go ahead.
Yeah, if I may.
No, it's the question is to Gail, not to you.
Excuse me.
So on your first question, the bid, the RFQ, the advance funding agreement is more than rock. So the bollards, the nautical style bollards, landscaping, trees, landscaping under the 2 bridge sets, pavers, the logo that's on the side of the MSE wall, the coping that's at the top of the highway that's different than anybody in the corridor, all of those were packaged together. So going back, the advanced funding agreement was the agreement that the city and TxDOT worked out. Some of the costs, for instance, the branding and the coping on top of the bridge was all handled by TxDOT, and that agreement went through that. The landscaping was then stated that at that time, the city would be responsible. The city then looked over to the Economic Development Corporation. The advanced funding agreements for $1.1 million. EDC and City Council together met jointly on that project to proceed with it. EDC paid $1.1 million to date. From that, TxDOT came back to us. They said there's a grant available. The $1.1 million that EDC spent on all those items that I listed, most of them were moved over to the grant. At this point, we're waiting on change orders, closeout of the project to determine how much of the $1.1 million will now come back to EDC.
Okay, but right now, they already have the rocks. They don't have the room to put all the plants. So that's a big problem.
So we've met in the field with the landscape architect, with the TxDOT crew that has been awarded by TxDOT to plant the plants. So right now it is extremely hot. They are looking at probably doing it after January. So the mulch beds that you see at 10th Street underneath the NASA Road 1 intersection, there's several small mulch beds that are cut on the side of the MSE walls. You go back towards the north. All of those will be planted with the exhibit that you're talking about with the natural grasses. When you get up to Red Bluff, reforestation happens all along the Red Bluff intersection. So all of the originally talked about items were incorporated.
So you're telling me, when I look out at NASA Run right now, and I can see all those rocks, you say that's not going to look like that. It's going to have plants, trees, and bushes all over it. Even though the beds are really small right down the middle. But so what are they going to move? Move the rocks?
The mulch beds, there's black mulch that you can see. Those are mulch beds that are ready for the plantings.
Okay. The plantings in the drawings were not down the middle in just those little planting areas where the black mulch is now. It was all the way out to the edge near the road. There was going to be trees. I'll read one more thing. This is going to be unlike any other highway project TxDOT has ever done. That's a quote from the mayor that did it to a newspaper or something like that. So right now we have rocks. That doesn't look good at all. And the way you told me 2 weeks ago, this is it. This is what it's going to look like. So now all of a sudden I'm hearing something different. So we'll go back to my questions. When did Clark Condon meet with the citizens for the citizens to have their input? And when did Clark Condon meet with the open spaces and trails, and even EDC. When did those meetings happen?
I don't have all the meeting dates in front of me, but we had several joint meetings between City Council and EDC because EDC was your funding partner.
Clark Condon wasn't there.
They were.
Clark Condon was at a meeting that I was at.
Clark Condon, and then previously we had SWA, which was the designer for your master landscape and branding plan. Most of the items that Clark Condon picked up was from your master plan.
Okay, so again, when did Clark Condon meet with open spaces and trails and the citizens of Seabrook to get their input? And it wasn't supposed to be the drawings complete. It was the citizens put their input in first. When were those meetings?
There was no meeting with OST.
Okay, why not? It was stated to them. I listened to their minutes of their meeting. It was 25 minutes long and change. They were told 3-5 different times that, don't worry, Clark Condon will meet with you. You'll have your input, da-da-da-da. You can hear many of their voices of the OST. When that didn't happen then.
That is correct. We did not meet with.
Why?
At that point, we were meeting with Clark Condon and TxDOT. They had very specific guidelines for the Green Ribbon program. So there's specific items that they could plant. And there was no additional input needed. So they have a different species that they know will work underneath underpasses in our grade type materials. And we met with the TxDOT consultant and they said that they would recommend these things. So we did not go back to OSD.
Just because it's specific, you don't meet with OST? These are master gardeners. These people know what's going on.
I understand. It's not a park and it's not really a public open space. We were seeing it as a corridor project with the.
How do you understand if you didn't let them meet? I don't get it. This is the problem I have. You didn't have the 3 meetings with EDC and now you're not having meetings now? When was the public meeting with Clark Condon?
We met with SWA and we met, I believe, with council with the Clark Condon.
No, real quick, I'm not done. When was the meeting with Clark Condon? I don't know how slow I can go. With Clark Condon and the citizens of Seabrook.
Did not have a public
We need to
meeting.
be a little more respectful, okay?
What?
We need to be a little more respectful, okay? You're being facetious right now.
Hey, you accept this? I want to hear your answer. I want to hear why you're not doing anything about this. Are you accepting this? You think this is okay? This is why I got on council. I don't like this. She's not done her job and you think it's okay. I have a huge problem with this.
Hey,
This is not right.
If I may, I was there back in 2016 with the previous administration when we started talking to TxDOT. We met at Spring Hill Estates multiple times. And I'll tell you who was there. Rosebud was there. Gary Ranolo was there. Michael Potts was there. I was there. The thing we learn when you're dealing with TxDOT, that's their property. We're guests there. The request that we made for the rock, that was all within those meetings. It was talked back and forth. TxDOT said, okay, you can do the rocks, but you're going to pay for them. That was the first thing. So we said, okay, the reason we're going to put the rocks there for everybody's edification was to deter transients from camping out under the underpasses like you see throughout. May I finish?
When do people camp out there? Well, we don't follow the rules anyway, so I'll interrupt. When do we have people?
All right, you did interrupt.
How many people have camped out?
How many people have camped out? Drive up to Houston, and you can take a look under the underpasses there.
50 miles from here, that's not Seabrook.
And the rocks are working. Nobody's camping out.
What about the $191,000 that we spent with Clark Condon to do this?
Because TxDOT is not going to let Bubba and Earlene take their trailer out there to put in gardens. You have to
know that. Everybody knows
So
that.
that's right. So you have to have a licensed landscape architect say, here are the plans, and it'll meet their criteria because, again, TxDOT still owns it. They're responsible for it. Well, then what's the issue?
The issue is they're supposed to have meetings. They promised, the
Meetings
city manager
started back in
promised.
2016.
The city manager promised. I was here when that meeting happened, and I can hear it in the OST meeting. We had the assistant city manager Oh, Clark Condon will meet with you. Clark Condon will meet with the citizens. That was told by the city manager. Clark Condon will do this. Why didn't it happen? And then I get no answer. And then you guys sit there almost quiet and you keep bringing up rocks and someone going to camp out. Who cares? Someone camp out. We have a policeman. They'll go over there. Excuse me, sir, you can't camp out. Now you're gone. That's as fast as it will happen. They could walk over there. They don't even need to drive.
Wouldn't it be a lot easier if they don't even camp out?
Because there's a lot of plants, and it was supposed to have like a walking trail, and it was going to be beautiful. And even the mayor says this is going to be unlike any other project. You think this is like any other project? It's not unlike any other project. You don't have a problem with that?
Drive over to Kima and see what they've got.
Kima didn't pay 1.4 million, buddy.
I know.
We did.
And we don't have to pay anything. We could take it all back. But that was not the decision back in 2016 when you were not at those meetings.
It goes farther. Okay, I was there in 2017. It goes further than that because not only was it going to be beautiful, this was what was going to bring back all the businesses back to Seabrook. It was going to be like a destination because under our underpasses, it was going to be absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. And then we don't meet with the people. I don't get it. I mean, you just keep giving this weird answer. Well, we just didn't do it. It was specific. We were talking about specific things. What does that mean? That means nothing. That's just the weirdest answer I've ever heard in my life. We're going to be specific.
May I say something? When Joe brought this up the last meeting, I was interested in this because I guess it was brought to council the week before I started on council. And I went back to the April 7th, 2022 meeting for the OST, and Sean Landis was there discussing in depth with the committee about making sure that they were involved in what's selected there. I mean, the whole item, there was an agenda item. It was 3.2, discuss, consider, and if necessary, take all appropriate action regarding ideas for the Green Ribbon consultant. And so if you listen to the audio on that, I mean, it is discussed over and over about them being involved in what's going to go there. And they didn't want to have a brief input and they actually predicted, they didn't want it to be like, now it's here. It's time to go install everything. And we've already decided everything, which is exactly what sounds like it's happened. They weren't involved in any of that. And Sean over and over assures them that they're going to be involved and that council's going to be involved. And then, I dug into this more because I didn't remember any of this. And I'm like, I don't remember ever talking about, since I've been on council, about landscaping in this area. And so that's where I started. And there were supposed to be meetings. Even in the contract, it says, with Condon, it says we're going to have 2 meetings, preliminary design. We're going to have 2 meetings with design development, and we're going to prepare, they basically, we spent $191,000 to have them design the rocks, the plants, and all of that. It's a lot of money. We think that we would take their advice on that. Well, whoever, I guess it was the city staff that decided and met with Condon, because she said on the 9/17 meeting last time we were here, that she had multiple meetings and multiple renderings that they had discussed. That wasn't with us. That was with staff. That should have been with us. That should have been with OST. How did we get here is my question. Even in Condon's, let's see, their statement of qualifications, public engagement. A major part of the process is an inclusive and innovative public outreach process. They have vision workshops, and they discuss all of this. I mean, this is a big deal. This is the final icing for our 146 project to be completed. And to take away from that or to do, half worthy is not acceptable. I mean, we need to have, why didn't we get all of this?
Can we please pull up the pictures that I've asked for? Could you please pull those up?
Are you talking?
It shows the side of the bridge with the all that, so people will understand what we're talking about. Thank you.
I don't have that on my disk.
Well, yeah, you do. You sent it to me. You have it. You have it. Please pull it up. Please pull it up. You have it. I know you do. You can pull up anything. You should have known that I was going to ask this. Please pull it up. You have the pictures.
I pull
Please
up
do that now.
Something for you. Because I would like to, go ahead.
If I understand correctly, this was started off as a city and EDC project, working in collaboration with TxDOT. TxDOT informed us of a grant, and that pretty much covered the cost of installation and the first year of maintenance on all the plants that are put in. If I recall and understand correctly, that grant came with certain strings attached. You can't put rose bushes under the bridge. They had a list of plants that were acceptable, and it is something that they've done elsewhere several times. At that point, input on our plant selection is pretty much out of our hands. Am I making that assessment correctly?
That's correct.
No, that's not correct. That is not
Is it
correct.
not correct, Joe?
Because they didn't say you couldn't put all these different kind of plants. You can put anything underneath there.
No, you
Basically anything. Yes,
Off
you
of their
could.
list.
That's
On the list they have, you're acting like the list is like that big. And you just been a bunch of gobbledygook.
They
Pull up
gave us
what they can do.
They gave us $1.1 million to do all that work, and that grants always come with strings attached. The strings attached to that was plants that were durable and reliable. So
They sold this to OST by telling, I mean, this is a 25-minute conversation with OST during the meeting, just this one agenda item. And then now to them, they've completely, they have no idea what's going on. They haven't had one meeting, one discussion about this. And here we are 2 years later. This is the kind of stuff that irritates me, because I feel like we approve it and we give way, and then if we don't remember to, bookmark that to make sure it goes through the right process, it just kind of, gets approved and moved on without our oversight, which was intended to be, and that frustrates me. Even though I wasn't a part of this, I could see that the process was not handled right.
Okay, so on your screen, as we discussed, this goes back to all the way to 2016. So there's multiple contracts that the city councils in the past approved, starting with conceptual branding plans. So what I have pulled up right now came out of the approved city council branding plan. I think that was done in 2017. That had the elements for underneath NASA Road 1. So this is where the rock was first introduced. And this plan was actually approved by city council unanimously. So this nautical barriers or bollards here, all of those elements, even though this was a conceptual plan, this was then used for a second design proposal that was put together by SWA that started to put a plan set together that when Highway 146 was actually bid, we had to have that second of many contracts to get the plan set inserted into the 146 so that they could tell us, yes, you, as city council, do want rocks. That's where that advanced funding agreement came in. That was the first check mark that council unanimously said the 1.1 million has been secured by EDC. We, city council, approve riprap or rock going in here. And TxDOT said, yes, we're going to go put that in the TxDOT plans. And it's spelled out in that advanced funding agreement that council approved.
I've seen that drawing with plants there, with those boats. I've seen it with plants. That's how we saw it. Jeff Larson remembers it that way too. So I never remember approving anything with just all rocks. And then, okay, if it was all rocks, why in the heck would you hire a company called Clark Condon to come and do an architectural, landscaping if that's already there?
Right, so we did the RFP with Clark Condon to get plans then together for Green Ribbon. So this was a multifaceted thing. We had the highway expansion going in. The mayor at the time negotiated with TxDOT on behalf of council that multiple items be picked up by TxDOT. The advanced funding agreement that came back, they started the branding that's on the screen right now to let TxDOT know that you wanted designs on the sidewall, you wanted different coping, you wanted rock, and that agreement that went over to TxDOT had all of that in there. So that gave TxDOT the green light that the city council at that time said yes to the rock, yes to the sidewalls, yes to the stars, and it allowed them to put that into the Weber contract. Weber is the approved contractor that went out with the TxDOT bid set. After the bid was done, TxDOT came back and let us know that there was a grant available. They said your EDC funding of 1.1 million could be offset for this grant. However, you have to tell us all of the species, all of the plantings, and that's where Clark Condon and that RFP came into play. That was approved. Another set of plans had to go back over to TxDOT for us to be able to get the grant.
Okay, and so part of that is, I just hear you, all the plants, so that means multiple. I understand you can't just put anything underneath there. Everybody knows that, you know, because it could affect the upper area and all that kind of stuff leaning out over the road. I get it. My point is, we saw drawings and renditions of a bunch of plants, then, you know, high level stuff, then medium level, low level, and grasses, and all sorts of things. And also, can you go up 2 slides? I think it's 47. The sidewall, you can see that the logo is painted. So are the sailboats. That's painted. They're not painted right now. When someone shows me a picture and says that's what you're going to get, I expect to get that. I want to make sure that those sailboats, even the mayor brought this up before a couple years ago. He goes, hey, wait a minute, these need to be painted. That's the way I saw it. I saw it that way too. My point is this. I keep going back to, you said the Clark Condon stuff was approved. I don't remember approving it. OST didn't approve it, and either did the citizens of Seabrook. So this is where they get mad at government. It's like, you just like, well, I'll just decide for you. You're not going to McDonald's tonight. You're going over to KFC. Who are you to tell us that? You don't do that. Once you tell the people that they get to make a decision and OST gets to be a part of the decision and design, then that needs to happen. And all these answers you've given aren't good enough.
So, Counselor, is there an action item that you would?
Yeah, we're going to go back and get Clark Condon out here, and we're going to go over this. Because I'm bringing this up every meeting until May when I have to get off council. I'm bringing this up because we paid $191,000. We're going to get what we want, meaning the citizens are going to get their say, OST is going to get their say, then they're going to go implement it into that. And by the way, we're all just talking about NASA 1. This is NASA 1, Repsdorf, and Red Bluff. So this is why it's such a big deal.
And Red Bluff, if you remember with that advanced funding agreement, it cuts, there's 2 TxDOT projects going on. So it cuts off at Red Bluff. So where you're seeing the grass laid and there's a fine line there, the next project is where they're adding the lanes. So we haven't even, that's a future discussion if we want to engage another designer to look at that intersection.
But remember, this green ribbon goes all the way almost to Dairy Queen, because that's where all this stuff. So we haven't even talked about from there up to NASA 1. Plus, you got all the way up underneath NASA 1 going north. So why didn't that I've asked a bunch of times, why didn't it happen? But it's gonna happen. So
Counselor,
you need to make
an action. So you're under a new business item. So if there's an action that you wish to give staff, please make that action item so that I can carry that out for you.
Okay, well, like I said, we need to get Clark Condon back out here. They need to meet with the citizens, have that open meeting, and probably multiple ones. It's said 2, and then OST, because they never got one. So again, and then I have a problem with why it didn't happen in the first place.
And where are we with this landscaping? I mean, have we ordered it?
So I've given the report after every council meeting. It's the Green Ribbon Program, and it bid at the beginning of this year. Every council meeting that we had, we've talked about where they're at on the project. They bid it. It's Green Sage that ended up getting the contract. And it is a TxDOT project. So when we got the grant, that's in TxDOT's hands. They bid that project. when Clark Condon gave them the plan set. So they had to have a plan set that's had all the species, all of that laid out in engineered stamped drawings that they gave to TxDOT. They bid it. They have a contractor. They've now started, so when the rock went in, the mulch beds went in. When we met in the field with them, they've been keeping us up to date. The plantings will probably not happen until springtime. And then your advanced funding agreement, when we decided to do all of this, that's where it says the city is going to be responsible after 12 months of the planting. So part of our field meeting a couple weeks ago was looking at the weather, the anticipated weather, deciding if you're going to plant them now and hand them over to the city in 12 months, or if you'll wait and give them a better chance in the springtime. The landscape architect told TxDOT it'd probably be better for the city if we wait. So the mulch beds will stay like this until the spring planting. Then we'll have 12 months under TxDOT control. Then they'll turn it over to the city, at which time we've talked about the city, per the AFA, will then have to decide how much do you want to keep this up? Do you want to groomed every week, every other week, once a month, once a quarter? And that will be part of what we originally talked about in 2016, 17, and 18, which was getting unique landscaping, coping, sidewalls with the branding, all of that together.
Okay, but in June of 2022 is when we hired Clark Condon. When did we submit or have plans ready to submit to TxDOT, roughly?
They were due to TxDOT at the end of 23.
Okay, so those 6 months is when I think there was a big gap of or lack of information, or including council and OST, because if you listen to that meeting at OST, I'm sure they wouldn't be happy right now if they were here. I mean, they talked extensively about their concerns about being involved in the process of what's being selected there, and here we are. They have no idea what's going on. Do we have a rendering? Do you have anything you could pull up?
Y'all have seen renderings, part of the State of the City address. We've put those on there. We put it into several newspaper articles.
Is it this one?
That's one of them, yes.
Okay.
Correction, you said 6 months. She said the end of 23.
Well,
That would be a year and 6 months.
It was June of 2022 when we hired Condon.
And so at the end of 2023, you got.
You're right, a year
That's
and a half. So you had a year and a
half.
half. You're right. So there was a year and a half of meetings that were drafting all of this. That I'm really disappointed to hear that it went that way. Maybe you did update us about the green ribbon. Maybe I didn't realize that because it's stuff that's happened before my time. But I think the city and the OST, or the residents as well, aren't getting what we had told them that they were going to get. And here we are.
And one last thing, and I was fired up a minute ago, so I'm settled down. I'd like to hear from everybody else, because so far I haven't heard from everybody, because there's been a lot of silence up here. So I'd like to have everyone give a little, your opinion of how this has gone and where we are and where we should go with this green ribbon project.
Well, you know how I feel, so Rob. I said, you know how I feel. I've been talking about it. I think this process was not handled correctly, and I'm disappointed in it.
The beds are mulched, as we heard earlier. They're mulched and waiting on the opportunity to plant, and they were paid for by somebody else. At its widest, I wouldn't think they would be more than 3 or 4 feet wider on either side, because you don't want, like that one picture you just showed me, you really don't want plants right up against the side of the road. For one, they're not going to survive very well.
That's
I would
the
trade.
process, though.
I would trade a little bit of width on it to have someone else pay 1.1 million to plant it and maintain it for a year, and not have to take that out of our citizens' taxes.
I would just like to add again, this is TxDOT's land. TxDOT has got their own standards they go by, and there are a bunch of them. And if you've ever dealt with TxDOT, you'd realize that. And what we went through, starting back in 2016, when we were sitting down with them and talking. So they have setbacks as, like for trees, how close you can plant on trees. That's based on speed. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of things. So, and then too, they're not going to let you plant anything in there that's going to detract, that they'd have to come back because they have the ultimate responsibility there for these beds.
I agree. I think it's a lot better than what the residents were getting. I think it's gonna look amazing when they're done. I know they're not finished painting, but EDC did pay for this, and Paul did say we're gonna get some of this money back, quite a bit. So again, it's not, didn't come out of the taxpayers' money at all, came out of EDC. So I think it looks amazing, and I think it will look good when it's all finished. So I think it's just kind of minor stuff that we're speaking of, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. Because again, it came out of EDC, they approved it, and we're heading in the right direction. None of the other cities have anything like this. And so I'm already still pleased with what we got.
It's amazing that, we're having these kind of discussions. Yes, I do remember more greenery, but the project is not finished, and I'm watching every day. I drive by there every day. When you have to wait and see what they're going to do, I think there's still a lot left to be done. And I think it's going to be great when it's finished. So and I think we have unfortunately, not as much control over this project as we'd probably like to have.
Well, I saw the original conceptual design and renderings that were done by TxDOT when the project was first started, which did show more planning. But that was very conceptual as far as the design of 146. It wasn't, I don't think it was ever intended that that's in original design conception that they were selling the project, the 146 project, the roads, not the landscaping. I think they were pretty pictures. We all looked at them and said, yeah, that's nice. Once we hired the landscape architect through EDC to look at it, as far as I'm concerned, they're the experts. My daughter is a registered landscape architect. She looked at the plans, thought it was great. Clark Condon, I think, did a good job. Whether or not they talked to the open space, I don't know, but the problem is, again, it's a TxDOT project. OST wouldn't have had any input anyway. That's their decision as to what goes under that bridge and how it's going to be built. Also, when you see the original rendering that they did back in way before my time, it looks like there's a wider space between the two roads. It looks like there's more sunlight that's getting through those. When it was actually built, I've walked it, and there is little sunlight that's coming through between those two roads. So what they plan in there, I'm not sure. I've seen pictures of natural grass that we said we wanted. Once the Green Ribbon project came into play, things changed again. It changed from the original landscape people to Clark Condon that changed it again. Again, it's a TxDOT project. TxDOT is going to have the say. They're going to have the ability to do whatever the hell they want. And I wish, looking back in hindsight, I would have liked to seen more, but they're telling us that, no, this is it. This is what we're getting. And since they're paying for it at this point, how much say do we want? We do probably have some money that we're going to get back to put into something different. If you want to make the beds a little bigger, we can talk to Clark Condon about it. But what we're getting is what was designed by a landscape architect that works for TxDOT that came up with this design. So I guess, and we've seen the design. I've seen the picture right here, the one previous to this too. It looks like that right now. Whether that's, can we go back one picture, Gail? Now, the sails, I don't know what the hell those are. Those are art pieces that we discussed with having those displays seasonal, that they change during the seasons. So we would go out there and change what that looked like. but I don't see any plants in there.
Yeah, and this was just your conceptual branding plan. The reason I pulled this up is I don't have the other one accessible to me right now, but the branding plan was the birth of all this. So the public input, everything came from the branding plan. That SWA consultant was a much broader contract. We spent a lot of money with just getting the design concepts than to get to the next contract. So I understand your frustration. The reason I'm asking for motion is if this being in a new business, if you want to go in a different direction, I just need that direction. There's not a problem with that. I'm just asking, instead of if there doesn't need to argue about this, if there's just something that you have a recommendation for your council, I'm just asking for direction.
Well, see, this picture shows wider space between the two bridges. It isn't that wide. This is a render, this is an artist's conception.
That's from 2017.
He's taken architectural license here. It's much narrower than that.
Correct.
And so how much light is going to come through there for
And
plants to grow?
it was a long, my point is a long process. There are so many contracts, not just Clark Condon, that led up to the Clark Condon contract. So it did go way back. There were a lot of items that we fed to the consultant based on public input. But if we want to go in a different direction, then we'll have to reengage another contract. We'll need to look and see what that cost is. Also keep in mind, we're not done. So Red Bluff, at some point, I want to come back to council because only half of Red Bluff is done in that intersection. That project cut off right in the middle. And so as the planting and the reforestation happens with this project, I would assume council will start to see how that intersection is going to look, what you want on the other side of the intersection. We also have areas underneath where outriggers used to be, where the boat ramp used to be. There's nothing underneath that bridge set that's in this plan set. So I think there's going to be different things that we're going to be looking at that we have to come back to council for different designs. So there's not any issue if we want to reengage them. We'll just have to see what that cost is and what council's appetite is for that.
Well, we also have to keep in mind that the Green Ribbon project, or what the $1.1 million from EDC went to, was the stars, was the bollards, was the white traffic signals. Yeah, all of that was part of this. And so it isn't, we didn't pay $1.1 million for some plants. So after you look at all that, the lights on the stars were pretty expensive because the electrical that was run was pretty intensive. The lampposts or the traffic signals, those were also a special. When I said we are going to have a project that is unlike any others, we did. We get lit stars. Nobody else in the state has them. We got the white sail like lampposts. We have the bollards. It is a great project, and it's unlike any other in the state. So, yes, I would like to see a little more greenery, but as far as I know, this is what we're looking at and anybody can see that plants aren't going to grow under the bridge. And so, they did a good job of adding something, but I don't think they're going to get too much more. And if we want to widen it, if we want to plant more in there, let's talk about it now. But I don't want to change the entire concept of what's going on here. I've talked and talked and talked about getting the sails painted and the logo painted, and I believe we are at that location right now.
So
We're still arguing about it.
So two things going on. I'll go ahead and update you. This was going to be later, but we do have closeout. So Weber is the contractor for this. They're closing out multiple change orders. When this project was first bid, the rock came in like 7 times higher than they estimated. So part of the negotiations was going back to TxDOT. They took it out. They had to rebid it. That's when the green ribbon came into play. TxDOT laid that on the table for us. So it was a lot of negotiating going on in the background. TxDOT has been actually a very great partner throughout this of trying to save the city some money after we put so much money into design throughout the last several years. So the renderings that we have, we did find out that right now Weber was not under the impression on the plan set that the cells, for instance, were going to be painted. So we've been going back and forth on that. At the same time, we know we're due some money back. They've returned right now that it'll be $22,000 to paint all the cells in the entire corridor because they didn't have that in the original plans. So, but we've got to close out what the 1.1 we're getting back from that, then look at that 22,000. But that painting project is coming up quickly, so I'll be coming back to council actually with that item next council meeting because we need to tell TxDOT if y'all want those painted, we'll put it against the credit, but it's another 22,000 because it was not put in the original plan set.
And, you know, well, I'd like to see that bid form then. They didn't have it in there, but again, yes, we want to paint it. I do.
I do too. So this was a good discussion. I want more greenery. I'm not saying like Rob, I'm not saying going all the way to the street. You know, there's not even grass all the way up there. Grass would obviously grow. When I came to the meeting today, because the road runs north-south, the western sun got way underneath that bridge. But what it is there's plants in Texas that can grow in like shadow light and all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of thing that they would do. We're not going to put something that needs like full sunlight because it's never going to get it.
But you also have to remember about how much heat is going to be under that bridge.
True. And also
And the concrete.
the dust that gets blown in and all that from all.
There is minimal stuff that you can do that's going to grow and survive.
Correct. But like pampas grass does well, even with.
It's
anyway.
tough to clean.
True. Because
Again,
it's not going to rain underneath there either.
one other thing I want to interject, because this council and future councils need to know, when we started the project and we approved that agreement, we reiterate the fact we will have maintenance on this project. One of the things the designer asked early on is, how elaborate do you want your plantings? Because that will drive up your maintenance cost. So we have to be mindful that the more that we put in, the more that annual cost will be. Will it be council paying for it, or will it be EDC paying for it? So those questions have not been answered yet.
True, but you also have OST, and I'm sure they would offer to help in some way. I understand that. Okay.
Okay, I have a problem with that, because why was there an agenda item for OST to discuss the green ribbon plan? And if I want all of you.
For that, they themselves on open space have been opening that discussion. This
In
project,
2022?
yes, this project is a highway project. It's not a park project.
Why would you put that on the agenda if you're going to just
The
pretend?
open space sets their agenda, so they've been asking for that. That's where that originated.
Okay, well, I encourage every single one of you on council to go back and listen to the OST meeting from April 7th, 2022, and 25 minutes of your time, and listen to the conversation, because what they were promised and what they were supposed to be a part of it's never happened.
And there may have been.
And I don't like that.
May have been a misunderstanding because this is a TxDOT project, and TxDOT had all to say in what they were going to do under their bridge. We might have had good intentions to bring the public in, but TxDOT took control of the project.
Well, that's why we,
Landscape architects.
with the landscape
and did.
architect that is very familiar with TxDOT process, that's why we hired them. That's another reason I listened to the minutes. I mean, I just think this whole procedure was wrong, and nobody ever wants to say, I messed up. This is here, nobody's perfect, but this wasn't handled correctly. The procedure was not handled correctly. And I'd like to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future. When we have, we're going to do this, X, Y, Z, then let's do X, Y, Z. Not just skip to, Z. Anyways.
So I would like to make a motion, kind of going after what Tom said about, let's look at this again, where we can add more green, because the renderings that I saw had a lot more green in it. I'm not saying all the way to the road, and I'm not saying, like this is going to be a forested area and you can't walk through it because it's so thick of forest. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying more green than what those mulched beds that are there right now. I'd like to see that expanded so it appears to be less rock than more. So my motion is for more plants.
I'd like, before you make your motion, wouldn't it be more conducive to let's sit down with Clark Condon and see his opinion before we start saying we're going to put more plants in? Yeah. Okay, let's, before
totally
we
agree.
do
Yeah.
anything.
Now, how can we involve, now, let's talk about this quickly if we want to do that, because that's a great idea. How can we involve, I know OST can't tell anybody what to do, I get it. But if you have their opinion, they can go, by the way, like Sally Antrobus might know some grass that does perfect with all these conditions. The point is, have their input and then also have some of the citizens' input, because they were told they were going to get that.
The only thing I would ask is that as we're putting this all together, we add in the maintenance cost, because that's a huge part of it. Because when it was first talked about, that was a big part of the discussion we were having. So that has to be included.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So if I'm tracking this correctly, we're talking about asking city staff to provide a rendering of the current layout, what it will be, correct? Well, whoever gets it.
They already got it.
So if y'all would like to,
To give council, where it comes from, I don't care, an accurate representation of what the current laydown will look like. And, correct? We want to see what it's actually going to look like when it's done before we try and spend money to figure out what it costs to change it.
Well, renderings cost money. And so, if we want to just sit down and talk to the landscape architect, find out what we can do to increase whatever we're looking at out there, and get his opinion before we spend any more money.
Agreed.
Yeah, and we'll invite OST to the meeting.
Okay, so now we have to make that motion.
Yeah.
Okay. I make a motion to have a meeting with Clark Condon to discuss expanding the green space underneath the 146 at NASA 1 and involving OST and a budget for future maintenance after the 12-month period has expired.
Any more discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. 4.3, consider to take all appropriate action on the renewal of a 5-year contract between the City of Seabrook and PS Lightwave with TIPS Purchasing Cooperative for Internet and Ethernet services in the amount of $57,078 for the term of the agreement, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement and all associated documents. Jimmy, is he here? Do we already have an agreement with them?
The contract has expired, and we are needing, give me a second. Yes, contract has expired as of February of this year, and we've been going month to month as of right now. We've been paying $972 a month right now. This will lower the cost down to $951 a month. So over the 5 years, we'll be saving approximately $2,600 in total.
Okay.
Very nice.
Move to approve 4.3.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Jimmy. Good job. 4.4, consider and take all appropriate action on a joint participation in a local agreement between the City of Seabrook and Harris County in a city funding share of $500,000 toward the total estimated cost of $1 million for the services of study, design, and cost estimate construction costs for the reconstruction North Meyer as part of the award of the 2024 Harris County Precinct 2 Partnership Grant, and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement. This is our share of that cost, Gail.
it is. On this project, let me pull up, when I last came to city council, the item that's on your screen right now is resolution 2024-08, We applied for Harris County Partnership Grant. Our staff put together an estimated cost of $4 million for reconstructing North Meyer at East Meyer at Gale's Feed Store all the way up to 146, inclusive of concrete and sidewalks where we don't have as nice sidewalks at this point. The county awarded us the project. However, with some of their past projects, and we experienced this on the sidewalk over on East Meyer, when we commit to 50%, whatever the amount is, we are locked into that. So once they go to bid, if that amount is over, then anything excess would be back on the city. So the county, for your item tonight, the interlocal agreement here has broken up into two. So the county has come back and countered and said, City of Seabrook, we would like to do a 50-50 match on design first and get the cost estimate from our engineers. So there will be another item in the future once their engineers get a cost estimate. We will apply for another partnership grant to get 50% of construction. That way we have less of a risk of being out for if the $4 million is under bid, and we get much more higher bid from the county when they go out for this. So this is a little bit different from what you approved, but we are approved for design only, and this agreement was drafted by the county for doing a 50-50 match. So they're estimating approximately $1 million in design and engineering work, and we would be 50% committing to $500,000 on this project. I will note, again, the county's projects and this agreement, later in the agreement, does state for any reason that the engineering is over $1 million, the city at that point will be responsible for that excess. But they do believe that $1 million should cover design and engineering.
Who's doing the design? Who's doing the design?
We met with someone, do you remember?
Who's this?
I don't know.
Kevin, didn't you design
The
it?
county's contract.
county's contract? Does the
Yes,
county's?
it's a county contract. So they have an on-call, several on-call third parties, but I do not recall the contractor. Okay.
Just let Kevin do it.
So it's not our engineers.
No, when we do the partnership grant, we are going with the county's design team, and they will often bid that out to a third-party design team, engineering team.
They're not doing it anyway.
No, but they have their standards, their direction, and they're offering the funding, so.
So my question is this, we just did those sidewalks from Gale's Feed Store all the way. So those would probably come up if they're going to, oh, they're not?
No. Anything that's sustainable, when we get into design, and actually they want public input on this project because it's going to go through the four-way intersection up to Tookie Seafood. It's a very good chance. This is a complex project once it gets past the four-way stop and goes back up to 146. We don't have sidewalks there right now, and there could be not property acquisition, but right-of-way acquisition to put sidewalks in there. So all that has to be studied, engineered. The cost estimate would come back and tell the city also, if we don't have enough room in certain areas, you're going to have to acquire right-of-way. This is the estimated right-of-way cost. And so, but anywhere that there's a decent sidewalk, those that we just put in by the intermediate school, those are good size. But we've got areas that, as you get back towards Main Street, are very tiny. I think they're like 2 foot. Some of them are grown over. Some of them are cracked. There's areas by Bayway Homes that were replaced. Those are good. The county did also tell us that when you get to Harris County Sports Complex over there and they have the granite parking, they're already looking at a separate project. They're going to put concrete sidewalk right there anyway. So it'll be a combining of projects in that area. But the overall goal, based on what the county or the city gave them with this grant, is that we would have contiguous and nice sidewalks from East Meyer for the project we did last year that will connect all the way up to 146 to the sidewalks on 146. So we'll have some great connectivity.
Would that ever be considered to make them a little wider so golf carts could go on them or not? Or do we not want golf carts on that? Because I see other cities doing that now, so that's why.
Current golf cart ordinance allows them on the streets for 30 miles per hour, so.
They're allowed on the street there.
So basically, this is an overlay and improvement of drainage?
It'll be, here comes the expert.
So they are gonna pour concrete? Wow.
Our most recent project experience, similar to this, with an interlocal agreement with Harris County Precinct 2 was the sidewalk project along Eastmeyer. That project was let with the county, and they utilized the service of an on-call contractor that they had already pre-vetted. Depending on the size and scope of the project, could depend on whether or not they go out for bid or they use an on-call service contractor like they did with us before. But we were heavily involved with the design review, plan set review, gave comments back to the county, and it would be no different on this one that staff's involved. So as you mentioned, some of the sidewalks are fairly new and utilized by students going to the school, intermediate school. That would likely stay. There's no reason it's outside of the reaches of what we expect this particular project to be. Looking at life expectancy of asphalt versus concrete, there's no comparison. We're hoping to get 50 years of a concrete road versus 10 to 20 years. We're looking at overlay or reconstruction of asphalt. So the intent here is to go with concrete. So it'll be a removal and replace. So drainage most likely will have some improvements made, but for the most part, continue to utilize open bar ditches as we are today. So where you typically see the asphalt end, and as it meets the grass, the concrete would do the same.
So it's because it's sloughing, on the edges. How do you keep that from, the concrete's going to do the same thing, yes?
We won't see that with concrete. No, we'll have, it would have been an 8-inch concrete street. So rated for the traffic that has now become the norm on that road that we used to not see back when the road was designed for asphalt, will be much more durable for that type of traffic and heavier loads that we see today.
Do we have an idea of when this may start?
Design.
Go through engineering?
Yeah, design, I don't know that it would start necessarily by the end of the year, but I would expect it to be around that time, and then several months for design, and then bidding, and then construction, and it depends on the availability of the contractors and those type of things.
Move to approve 4.4.
Any more discussion? Go ahead, Joe. No. Oh. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Consider, I'm sorry, 4.5, consider and take all appropriate action on Resolution 2024-22, incentive agreement for Miramar Shopping Center parking lot improvements with Miramar Beltline GP LLC, as approved by the Seabrook Economic Development Corporation on September 12, 2024, in accordance with the previously posted business incentive program project.
Mayor, just for correction, this item did not end up needing a resolution, so the motion does not need to reference the resolution, just the agreement.
So do I hear a motion?
Move to approve 4.5.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Unanimous. Discussion 5.1. Discussion regarding a complaint that was sent to the city against Councilmember Joe McCall from a resident and appropriate process for addressing.
So I brought this up, so for everyone to know, on the day of the hurricane, I got involved in an incident where a guy pulled a gun on me. But then this guy got out of jail and he made a complaint. The DA said that he has to, and okay, the way I found out was I got a call from the city manager, someone made a complaint on you. Well, I don't know, because we didn't talk a lot, because I was just like, okay, like, what does this mean? So it wasn't talked about if he came in and wrote it up or called in. I didn't know at the time. So that's when I decided I wanted to get this on the agenda to talk about it. Because if we're gonna do this, you got to have credible people do it. I'm sure the guy's credible with his 20 felonies, but and he's facing 5 to life for what he did to me. So this is fact. The DA's told me this, but he also said he better stay 1,000 feet away from you and never come near you. So my point about all this is, if we're going to do this, maybe, what?
Hang on. Do we need executive session on this?
I mean, we don't need anything at this point. I'm just trying to figure out how the city has jurisdiction over this matter.
Okay, well, I'm saying that we should have maybe a little bit of a policy to look into it before you tell the councilman someone's doing it. Should it go to like a citizen's review or something like that? Because just calling somebody up, hey, you got a complaint against you, what does that mean? What does that do? Like, is that supposed to intimidate me? Is it supposed to make me upset? Is it supposed to get me worried? I don't know what that's about. So, I know what it's about, but I don't think anybody else does. And that gets out to be the public because he turned it in. So this is a public deal now. So my point is, what should we do in the future? Are we going to have a public review of stuff like this? Because it even happened tonight. So, I mean, is that the format we want it, or how do we want to do it? Because I'm a huge proponent of the First Amendment. So even though we say you can't make personal attacks and you have to give your name and address before you speak, you don't, per the First Amendment. And that trumps everything that we say here. But the point is, how should we handle that in the future? Because then you can get just whack jobs coming in and going, I don't like you, making all these complaints. And then what happens? Are you censured? Do they lop off your baby finger? I mean, take your firstborn kid, kill your dog? I don't know. But that's where I'm trying to get to. So what are we doing in this?
Well, Mayor, go ahead.
So I'm a little confused. So we got a letter complaint or a call-in complaint, or what was it?
Someone just wrote in.
Somebody wrote a letter? So, and what did you do with it?
It was submitted to the city secretary's office. It wasn't a signed affidavit, notarized affidavit of any sort, so it didn't trigger
It
anything.
wasn't an official complaint form.
The letter, so I notified the counselor and we filed it.
It's hidden in archives somewhere, right?
Mayor, why don't we do this? I think Joe has made a request that we at least take a look at the process. So why don't I do that, take a look at the process. I'll talk with Gail and I'll huddle up with you, Joe, and we can talk more about it.
Perfect, thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Is there, so no other, okay, no, okay. 5.2, hear a report on the previously approved item on October 4th, 2022, license and indemnity agreement between the City of Seabrook and Seabrook American Flag Initiative. Joe? Oh, buddy?
Yeah, I put this on there because at our last council meeting, they were talking about planting trees on Main where the flags are supposed to go. And the additional activity down on Main with the repurposing of the water treatment plant. Plus we had, we were the host for the state remote control radar thing. And I just wanted to make sure it was all coordinated in with the flag effort.
That's kind of a good point.
Okay, so originally, like we talked about with the flags, they're from the inside edge of the curb, or actually, I guess it's the outer edge of the curb to the actual middle of the pole. The closest one is 1 foot. The next ones are 4 feet. It's 1 and 4, 1 and 4, and they're staggered. And like I originally proposed, they're flexible. We moved 2 poles when Sean, Landis, Kevin, and Brian all came out, and Public Works talked to me about, hey, we're going to be putting this sidewalk in. By the way, the sidewalk looks great, guys. Thank you. They said, hey, what about the poles? If we, put this sidewalk here, we could knock out a lot of poles. Well, we looked at it and came up with a plan to we had to move like 3 total poles. That's it. And some of them just maybe a foot. So it still gives the same look. The reason the flags are staggered, it gives it a force multiplier look. They do this in Washington, D.C. So when you're driving down a road and you see them, it looks like there's more flags than there actually there. That's why you do it. Anyway, so if they put these oak trees up, where they're talking about it, I would probably work with OST, the city, and say, if we're putting our flags here like that, and then obviously if there's going to be an oak tree there, and then give it time to grow later on, maybe I skip a spot where we don't put them so it doesn't affect those flagpoles. And when it comes down to where the waste treatment plant is, we're going to work that out. But so far, we haven't, the agreement I was given was 31 pages, and I'm refusing to sign that because I don't think to put American flags up on Main Street, even though originally it was going to be 500, it's probably going to be less, but I'm not going to sign a 31-page agreement where one of the points is, and this was the previous attorney that wrote this up, that says, and I quote, if Joe McCall or Safi breaks a flagpole or damages a flag, Safi replaces it, or Joe McCall. If the city breaks a flagpole or damages the flag, Safi pays for it. Why would I ever sign anything like that? I'm never going to sign something that says, if you break it, I got to pay for it. I'm never going to do that. So I don't think it needs to be 31 pages. I think it can be one that the city is digging the hole and going to have the receiver there. I'm just going to come and they're going to take the cap off the city. I'm going to slide a pole in with volunteers. And then after the 2-week period of the 5 or 6 time we fly the flags, I pull them back out, put them back in storage. Then that's all I think it needs to say. I mean, that's my opinion, but that's why I didn't sign a 31-page agreement.
Are you ready to go with the flags now?
I have about 50 flags, and I got some of the poles, so I need to sit down with and get something signed, and then I need to get with Kevin, and I would like to do the next 20 to 25 right across from the memorial, just literally right across. And by the way, that landowner gave me permission to put them the 1 and 4, 1 and 4.
Well, however we get to it,
Right.
if there's an issue on the contract, then I would suggest the two sides get
Yeah.
together and get it going. But
We can do that.
my main thing was, I didn't want a bunch of stuff going down there, and then you go down and say, where am I gonna put my flags?
Right.
Or the other thing is, all the flags go down there, and we've approved for trees to go in, and I just didn't want the.
I knew this would have to be flexible the whole time because, one, it's way more than we want, or not we want, than normal. But that's why I wanted Main Street to be unique with a bunch of American flags. But if we have to adjust a few in certain spots because of a tree or, there's even some poles, like Kevin, there's some signs and, like I'm not going to move a 30 mile an hour sign to put a flag there. We just have to move on and put it down further just to make it work. So anyway.
Should we hold off on a certain location or certain spot until the trees come in?
Probably, yeah.
Or come in?
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Before we have to start moving.
Exactly, because why would you make the workers have to do it twice?
All right, so you want to stop where, at the slough?
Yeah, we can, that's
now?
fine, yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. 6.0, routine business. 6.1, city manager update and report to city council on various items that require no action, including Seabrook boards and commissions, transportation projects, State Highway 146 recap, and the city of Seabrook CIP projects. Gail?
Mayor and council, I'll make this kind of brief. I know some of you are doing the National Night Out tonight, but in regard to Main Street and the trees, I would like to pick up and let you know that staff has started meeting with some of the on-call vendors for the Bayside Park expansion. So if you recall, the CIP project for where the old sewer plant is now, that will be demolished. EDC has agreed that that's a priority project for them. So once we get a designer on board, we'll be coming back to EDC and council. So this will be another joint project that you guys can be watching out for and follow. And so that you can understand where we're going to be at that project as far as design. That will be an open space public park. So once that was up and going, we will have public input. We'll have open space input as well. But we'll hope to, in about 2 weeks, pick a proposal. So possibly the first meeting in November, you'll have a proposal for Bayside expansion. Transportation projects, again, on the 146, they're still continuing to do the final closeout. Staff is going to spend a lot of time on the change orders, predominantly in the landscaping section, so we can figure out how to close that out, particularly with EDC. Red Bluff, if you're in that intersection, you can see the separate EDC or separate TxDOT project going back to Fairmont is well underway. Was a number of public announcements that went out as far as road closures. They're doing predominantly at night to get that lane, last girders in the lane so they can start the pouring in the Red Bluff intersection. They did start, and I didn't get a good update, but they are starting the clean out of the detention area at Red Bluff. And so we will hopefully get a better timeline on the intersection at that old 146 in Red Bluff to give council hopefully in the next couple of months. I think the last report I gave y'all was we were about 7 months out. We have a number.
We got the sign.
Oh, yes, the sign. I sent you guys a message. Both signs have been installed that now show Seabrook on the highway. So that's also checked off. And on CIP projects, we've got a number of your park projects.
I'm talking about on the sign.
A number of your park projects well underway. So Public Works has been busy, just like the restroom one that came before. We've got the lights at Meadow Park that are in. The pickleball court on Repsdorf is going in. They're going to pour the concrete on Thursday. And so there's a lot of activity out there. The basketball courts on Toddville, if anybody's asking, the 18-wheelers to do with the court resurfacing. So any questions?
Yeah, hey, anything on the pool? Like, I thought they were supposed to give us a drawing or something.
They were. So the designer on that did not include the buildings. And so we are going to work with some of these on-call providers that we have to try to see if we can get someone to give us a cost on what it would take to work with the buildings. They had a pool cost, but that's going to all be shielded by the buildings, and they wouldn't be touched in that project with that pool vendor. So we're going to couple that with a proposal to touch the buildings and then come back to you with both of them. And if it will happen pretty soon because you guys need to look at financing as far as bond projects, if that's the direction you want to move. So we'll be coming hopefully in the next couple months with that project. It'll be more comprehensive for buildings and pool.
I got something. This, and I'm not sure if the right way to do it, but anyway, I spoke to each member of the EDC, and they would be very interested if Ms. Rasko and Mr. McCall would make a presentation at their next meeting or whenever it's convenient regarding your desire to hire a director of economic development. And this will give an opportunity for a give and take between the members of EDC and y'all.
Hey, when's the next meeting, by the way?
Second Thursday of every month, and that's the issue for me because I'm the vice president of our HOA, and we meet on the second Thursday.
We've actually moved it
Yeah, we
because
moved
I know a lot of y'all are going to TML on the week of the 7th, so it'll be moved to the 17th.
It's still on Thursday.
That's the day I leave for my girls' trip for Fredericksburg that I've been planning for 6 months.
That's not.
But I would love to come. I would absolutely.
Is that the Lone Star Flight Museum? Is that the Harris County Mayor's?
Yes.
That's also that night
Okay,
too.
so, I'm going to the Harris County Mayor's thing, but I will come to EDC. I have no problem coming to there. Because I would like to discuss that because of what was said back in January, about the ideas that one lady had. But yeah, I would like to talk to everybody because, I just think that would be important. So yeah, let's get it, and they can question back and forth.
We can probably get it in November.
Can I add?
Let's see if we can get it, because it'd be really good if both y'all could come.
I would love to. Right.
Thank you.
I just can't come the 17th.
Okay.
But I would like to ask for the next agenda item, can we discuss putting a hot funds committee together, just specifically to review hot funds throughout the year? A committee.
I know. You might want to do your research on that.
Okay.
We've done that before.
Okay.
There's a lot of interesting history on it.
Do you mean an allocation?
Somebody there, yeah. Yes,
To
somebody
review
that
the
can.
allocation or
Right.
review process?
To review the allocations that's more familiar, not having it all lie on EDC and us.
I mean, we'll put a discussion item on the next one?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do my research before that, I guess.
Put a discussion on it. Anyone else? Do I hear a motion? Oh. Oh,
I don't have much. Mayor and council, your next regular city council meeting is scheduled for October 15th at 6 PM.
Move to adjourn.
all in favor? 7:30. Well.